Hey everyone, thank you for joining another episode of Primary Market Chatter. We'll get started. हमने कल 6 IPOs कवर किए थे. आज हम remaining 5 IPOs कवर करेंगे and that will kind of cover the IPOs for this week. There are 11 open IPOs which we are going to cover, out of which we had covered 6. So the remaining 5 we'll be talking about today. Just for recap, हमने कल वेस्टर्न कैरियर की बात की थी, आर्केड की बात की थी, एनवायरोटेक की बात की थी, पॉपुलर फाउंडेशंस की बात की थी, सोडानी की बात की थी. ये करके हमने 6 IPO कवर कर लिए थे. और अगर आपने ये नहीं सुना है तो ये हमारे यूट्यूब चैनल पे भी इनका रिव्यू, क्रिस्प रिव्यू इन 10 minutes अवेलेबल है. सो यू कैन गो अहेड एंड लिसन टू दैट एज वेल. लेट मी go ahead and put in the channel link जिस पे हम ये रिव्यूज डालते हैं ऑन द चैट बॉक्स. तो आप देखोगे कि पहला जो कमेंट है उसमें मैं चैनल का लिंक डाल रहा हूँ. सो मेक श्योर यू फॉलो the channel there, and if you have missed any of those last 6 reviews you can kind of listen to them on this channel as well. I have also put it on the space. I have shared it on the space and it will start showing. Maybe with that I'll kind of set up for this for today what we are planning to do. So again, should be a very small space. We'll be covering 5 IPOs. We'll start with a couple of SMEs. We'll start with Paramount Specialty and Bikewo, and then move to a main board. Northern Arc, I understand Northern Arc has a lot of interest, so we wanted to keep it slightly till the late. And then we'll end with Osel Devices and Pelatro. Very different kind of companies today, very interesting. So should be fun to listen to them. But before we get started, I think Yash has dropped off. Yash, are you on the call? If yes, then we can probably start with Paramount.
Yes, I'm on the call.
Okay, go ahead. I can't see you though. But yeah, let's start with Paramount Specialty. Just for setting it up, the company does steel forgings. इसका हमने promoter video भी किया हुआ है जो कि channel पे डला हुआ है. So if you feel like you will be interested in knowing about the management interaction, you can go ahead and do that as well. The IPO is opening tomorrow and will be open till 19th, and is a 32 CR IPO. So maybe yes, do you want to go ahead and cover Paramount Forgings?
Yeah, sure. So Paramount Specialty Forging is a player in the steel forging industry and has a wide experience of more than 3 decades. The products which they deliver are for various industries, including petrochemicals, oil and gas, then automotive sector, etc., etc. Among them, they make flanges, gearings, blanks, bearing races, and turbine rings. So they have two operating facility under them. The one is in Kamot, which is a closed die forging plant with a capacity of 5,000 megaton per annum. The another one is Kalapur plant, which is ring rolling and open forging plant, which has a capacity of 7,000 metric ton. So the company is raising the issue to fund its capital expenditure, in which they are installing machines for this capacities, process machining capacities, and then they want to invest in for their working capital cycle. So the promoter, I'll mostly talk about the promoter in this call because we have mostly covered the financials and what the company does and how they have emerged in last few years. So the promoter to me was very genuine and very solid. He has a very good background in forging industry, more than 3 decades. And what I really liked is he is not like he has sat in an AC room and then he has learned all the technical things. He has been on the ground and then he has done hit and trial and then he has learned all the things. So the company was incorporated in 1962. From that time, it's the third generation which has taken over it now. So currently the capacity is at around 40-45%. So basically what they are expanding is they are expanding their process machining capacities, which will help them ensure that कि product जो हमारा जो बन रहा है वो जल्दी मशीन से complete हो. मशीनिंग में बेसिकली वो जो प्रोसेस होता है कि पहले तो वो फोर्ज करते हैं गरम करके एंड देन जो उसके बाद जो ऊपर से उसकी मशीनिंग होती है कि उसको शेप देना, उसके अंदर रिंग्स डालना, उसको बेटर क्लैरिटी करना, वो सब प्रोसेस मशीनिंग में आता है. तो उसकी कैपेसिटी बढ़ाई है उन्होंने. सीएनसी मशीन, VMC machines they are installing, which will help them to cater to new industries as well, which is their defense and aerospace industry, क्योंकि उसमें ये बहुत ज़्यादा use होती है. If we look at financials, the financials are little bit stagnant. रेवेन्यू उनका ऑलमोस्ट सिमिलर लाइंस में ही है. It's around 112 crores in FY24 and was 110 crores in FY23. If we talk about जो उनका वैल्यूएशन है, आई थिंक द कंपनी इज फेयरली वैल्यूड. मतलब बहुत सही रेट पे लग रहा है. पोस्ट इशू आई थिंक इट विल बी अराउंड 16 का पी. एंड not sure about what is the GMP going on and what it will list, but I think the company, given they are in forging industries, is it at good valuation. So looks interesting to me. Also talking about the net profit margins उनके recently spike हुए हैं. ये हमें उनके profitability में दिख सकता है, which is also I think he was pretty confident in which कि ये net profit margin sustain करेंगे because जो कैपेसिटी उन्होंने बनाई है, जो कैश उनका फंसा हुआ है अभी इन्वेंट्रीज एंड ट्रेड रिसीवेबल्स में, इट विल स्टार्ट कन्वर्टिंग एंड वो जल्दी फिनिश गुड्स बनाएंगे एंड जल्दी डिलीवर कर पाएंगे, तो वो भी जल्दी जल्दी टर्न होने लगेगा. प्लस इन्वेंट्रीज में देयर वाज सिग्निफिकेंट अमाउंट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स, या फिर बोल सकते हैं कि कैश फंसा हुआ था. दैट ऑल्सो ही हैज assured दैट कि given in next 6 to 12 months it will also be very minimalistic according to the industry standards. One risk which I look in the company is कि धंधा पैसे फंसाने वाला है. जितना पैसा जाएगा उतना आउटपुट आएगा. तो अगर कैश फ्लो ढंग से मैनेज नहीं होता है तो काफी ज्यादा हाई चांस है कि कंपनी इंटरनल अक्रूवल से नेक्स्ट लेग ऑफ ग्रोथ नहीं कर पाएगा, जो उनका फोर्जिंग कैपेसिटी इंक्रीज करने के लिए होगा. द सेकेंड पॉइंट इज, कंपनी बोल रही है कि दे आर केटरिंग टू दिस केमिकल्स एंड ऑयल एंड गैस सेक्टर. अगर मैं बड़े बड़े जाइंट्स देखूं इन सिमिलर इंडस्ट्रीज, स्पेशली दे आर फोकसिंग ऑन ऑयल एंड गैस, जो फ्लेंजेस वगैरह पाइप में कनेक्टिविटी के लिए यूज होते हैं. तो इफ आई स्पेशली लुक एट ऑयल एंड गैस कंपनीज जो बिग जाइंट्स है, वो ऑलमोस्ट फॉर नेक्स्ट 3 years जो उनका फॉरवर्ड पी है, इट्स क्लोज टू अराउंड ऐसे 12 फॉर FY25, 10 फॉर FY26 एंड 8 फॉर FY27. तो मोस्टली उनका खुद का ग्रोथ नहीं हो रहा है, तो विच कैन हैम्पर द ग्रोथ ऑफ दिस कंपनी एज वेल. So these are the two major risks which I look at. I think promoter is solid, the knowledge is solid, but let's see how they delivers.
Thank you so much, Yash, for covering the review. It was very comprehensive. Just to highlight, ये हमने management interaction भी किया हुआ है Paramount Forgings का. So go ahead and see that as well. Take an informed call. हमारा idea ये रहता है कि हम बस जो भी advantages और disadvantages हैं वो सब बता दें कंपनी के, ताकि you can take a more informed call. एक दो चीजें जो मुझे Paramount Forgings की और लगी, it's a very highly capital intensive business and the company has a lot of PPE going for it. Plant purchase machinery जो है, so कंपनी के जो 2 प्लांट है वो खुद के नाम से हैं. एंड कंपनी का जो मशीनरी है वो भी काफी सारी मशीनरी कंपनी ने ऑलरेडी खरीद रखी है. सो द कंपनी शुड हैव वेरी गुड लिक्विडेशन वैल्यू. आई फील वी शुड add up, and the promoter seemed as quite honest and on the ground works from there, so should be an interesting company to look at. I think the company has some GMP, so should be difficult to get allotment from my understanding, but it's something which I will be targeting in a moderate pace. And there are a few questions. Oh, there's no GMP, at least on a few websites. So let's see how it evolves. It's opening tomorrow. But yeah, that's our read of Paramount Forgings. And yes, did you look at the anchor book? I saw a couple of interesting names in anchor book. Anything that stood out to you by any chance?
Hello, Manish, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
So Manish, I didn't look at the anchor book yet.
Got it. I had seen the anchor book. I saw India Equity Fund was there, and some okay names were there. So it seemed like a good anchor book as well. But yeah, like nothing which outrightly stood out. Very similar to some of the SME anchor books that we are used to seeing. But yeah, that's our read of Paramount Forgings. इसके बाद एक और कंपनी की read complete करते हैं, Bikewo. We are doing Yash's companies first because he has to take a exit, and hopefully I understand a lot of questions would be, I haven't seen, but where's Tanmay? So he'll also be joining in some time, hopefully. But let's do Bikewo as well. Maybe I'll set it up. So again, it's a 24 CR issue. 24 crore company raise कर रही है Bikewo. It's opening day after tomorrow. It's opening on 18th and closing on 20th. And if I talk about what the company does, so it's an electric two-wheeler retailer. So like again, it's a dealership per se, very similar to Yamaha, but electric Yamaha showroom dealership. But electric vehicles on top of that. At least that's why my very naive read of the company. So maybe, Yash, do you want to clarify if my read is right or if there's anything else which I'm missing? Over to you to talk about Bikewo GreenTech.
श्योर मनीष. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल तो आईड लाइक टू हाईलाइट कि कंपनी के बारे में ज्यादा बात करने के लिए कुछ है नहीं, क्योंकि व्हाट दे आर एक्चुअली डूइंग वर्सेस व्हाट दे आर हाईलाइटिंग इज टोटली डिफरेंट. वो बोल रहे हैं कि दे हैव स्पेसिफिकली फोकस्ड ऑन इलेक्ट्रिक टू व्हीलर रिटेलर इन इंडिया, की इलेक्ट्रिक दिस ई मोबिलिटी में गवर्नमेंट इज डूइंग दिस, सो वी आर वर्किंग इन दिस सेक्टर एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. बट दे आर नॉट basically that. Majority of their revenue comes from the resale of old cars. I think it was 15 crores for FY24, and 9 crores was sale of EV vehicles. So total contribution was 24 crore, जिसमें से 15 crore तो प्री ओन कार्स बेच के ही करा है उन्होंने. एंड इफ वी टॉक अबाउट जो इतना इन्होंने इलेक्ट्रिक करा है, तो 10 करोड़ का पकड़ लेते हैं FY24 पे. FY23 पे 9 करोड़ दे हैव डन. तो कुछ ग्रोथ तो आया नहीं है बिजनेस में. तो आई थिंक इट इज वेस्ट ऑफ टाइम टॉक अबाउट ईवी में ये, ईवी में वो. व्हाट दे डू इज दे पार्टनर विद अदर कंपनीज जिनके थ्रू दे बी एज अ मीडिएटर, एंड उनके थ्रू दे सेल दिस ईवी motorcycle, etc. Versus they have also tied with many new dealer companies which have pre-owned cars, जिसको ये लोग अपने लैंड वगैरह पे या फिर जो भी फैसिलिटी वगैरह पे उस पे दिखाते हैं, एंड दे अर्न मार्जिन ऑन दैट. कंपनी के अभी 34 एम्प्लॉयज हैं, जो क्वाइट लेस लग रहे हैं मुझे, गिवन दैट दे ऑल्सो ऑपरेट इन दिस फ्रेंचाइज बेस्ड मॉडल. 3 टाइप के इनके मॉडल है, डायमंड, प्लैटिनम एंड स्टेट, विच इज बेसिकली वही कि प्लैटिनम वाला आपका रिटेलर जैसा वर्क करेगा, एंड डायमंड वाला एज अ स्टॉकिस्ट, एंड देन स्टेट वाला उसको इन्फो लाके देगा. तो ऐसा इनका स्ट्रक्चर है. वन ऑफ द वेरी बिग रेड फ्लैग विच आई फाउंड वॉज कि इनका profitability was increased very quickly. Just a second, Manish.
Sure.
Let me get the exact figure.
तो जैसा कि मैं देख पा रहा हूँ, पैट इज समवेयर अराउंड 1.67 CR फ्रॉम लाइक
Correct. From
9.8
9,
lakh.
9.8 lakhs. Correct. And
Yeah.
रेवेन्यू में कुछ इंक्रीज ही नहीं हुआ है, गिवन कि मतलब इंक्रीज हुआ है ऑब्वियसली, देयर इज इंक्रीज, बट गिवन इन्होंने प्रॉफिट इतना ज्यादा दिखा दिया है, तो विच इज रेजिंग द आईब्रोज. एंड ऑल्सो आई वुड लाइक टू हाईलाइट, गिवन दैट आई हैव वर्कड इन अ प्राइवेट इक्विटी फर्म, जो द क्वालिटी ऑफ DRHP दैट दे हैव सबमिटेड, कि हॉरिजॉन्टल दिखा दिया, वर्टिकल दिखा दिया, इट रियली पिसेस मी ऑफ. इट शोज दैट कि भाई कंपनी के प्रमोटर्स को प्यार नहीं है कि कंपनी से क्या आड़ा टेढ़ा दिखा रहे हो, क्या पढ़े कैसे इसे. तो आई थिंक नॉट मच टू टॉक अबाउट हियर. आई थिंक दिस शुड बी अवॉइडेड.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much for your read. Yes. Again, this is from the fundamental perspective. You don't know what will happen with respect to the price. Price is what you pay,
करेक्ट.
value is what you get. So again, this was from the value perspective. So thank you so much for covering it. But yeah, with that we have covered two companies. हमने Paramount Forgings की बात कर ली है और उसके अलावा अभी हमने Bikewo GreenTech की बात कर ली है. With this, we'll now kind of cover a mainboard issue. एक बार एक mainboard issue, which I understand a lot of people want to understand what the company does. So we'll talk about Nadanag. So maybe, Rohit, do you want to go ahead and talk about Nadanag, what you felt about the company?
Sure. I'll share my read. I'll be very honest. I have not understood this company fully, but I will try and share what I know and also maybe make a couple of suggestions that people can just research, which is something I myself am still pending to do. So this is an NBFC. We've seen quite a few of these across, many over the several last year or so. Some have done well, but some have not done well. And many times this NBFC/bank, small finance bank type business actually listed very poorly. Hopefully this will buck that trend. So this is an NBFC. They're raising 777 crore, of which 500 is fresh, while the rest is an offer for sale. They are interesting because they have a very diverse portfolio compared to, say, some of the other NBFCs that have come. One example, say something like a Muthoot Microfinance, which did really badly. They were purely a microfinance play. Whereas Northern Arc, they actually have 6 different verticals that they lend within. So they do MSME financing, which is small business financing. They do microfinance. They do consumer loans, which is unsecured loans. They do vehicle financing. They do affordable housing, and they do agri. And the first 3, which is MSME, micro, and consumer, while that does make up the bulk of it, the fact that they have all these other verticals, each of which are growing, shows that you cannot treat them as a one-trick pony, and they are quite diversified. If, say, for example, there is a headwind against microfinance, which is why, say, microfinance sector is just not getting a good market multiple today, it will not affect them that much. Apart from this, they also have 2 more sources of revenue. They also have what is called a placement business. This is where they are not necessarily the lender, but they are a bridge between the company that needs to be funded and other lenders. In a sense, they're almost like a competitor to themselves, but it's a sort of very scalable way for them to grow their business if they are not well placed to service that customer. The other thing that they do is they do fund management as well, where they actually have, I think, a 3,500 crore AUM, which includes like a portfolio management service. They have debt funds. So they're quite a diversified business that way. And therefore, it's not very easy to find like an apple to apple peer, so to speak. The other thing is they have a interesting technology product suite. So they're not just a fund, and it's again a little difficult to explain, but they have tech solutions for debt funding, for co-lending, which is where there's been a lot of policy push recently. They have a separate tech solution for underwriting to do for in their placement biz for the partners to underwrite better. So it's a very complex business, not very easy to sort of pigeonhole as this is just another NBFC. So some interesting statistics. So they are probably one of the cleanest NBFCs today in terms of their provisions and their non-performing assets. They just have a 0.5% GNPA and a 0.1% NNPA, which is probably the best in the NBFC space. Also, 70% of their loans that they're giving, the gross loans, is secured, was only 30% unsecured, which again is something the market generally prefers. Unsecured, larger proportion of unsecured just gets a lower price to book compared to the reverse. They've grown their AUM very healthily at almost 30% year on year for the last 3 years. That AUM is almost 11,000 plus crore. They have very high NIMs, almost 8.4%, which is also growing very quickly. And the good thing is their cost of borrowing has actually not grown that much because they've had their own credit rating improve. So their cost of borrowing has not increased, but their NIMs have increased quite significantly. The management is also very highly qualified. So it's a professionally run company, so they don't have a promoter per se or a promoter group. But that's not really, in my view, a problem. Probably the best thing about this IPO is the pricing that it's coming at. It's just coming at a 1.3x post-money book value, which is very, very attractive. So this is the bit that I could not do fully, but probably the 2 closest peers that I find is somebody like a Capri Global and maybe Mass Financial. The reason for that is because they also have a mix of different categories that they lend in, whether it is MSME or microfinance, gold loans, and so on. And they also do some amount of placement or the business where they just get a fee and are not doing it based on the loan. Capri Global trades at 4.5 times price to book. Mass Financial trades at 2.6 times price to book, while this is coming at 1.3. So it feels like they have left a lot on the table. I think a couple of really good investors invested in the pre-IPO about 6 months ago, not even 6 months, 4 or 5 months ago at, I think, almost 25% higher valuation, Ravi Jaipuria, IFC. So it feels like they've left a lot on the table. I'm not really sure why they've left so much on the table. The anchor book was also really good from what I could see. So Sunil Singhania's Abacus fund was there. There's one more very, very high quality fund. I'm forgetting the name now. But overall, it looks like a no-brainer apply. I think maybe the one thing that I myself will study a little bit is just how best to compare this with peers and see if Capri Global is a peer, but are they, is their category mix very different, which is why they have such a high price to book. I think if there is some comfort on that, then, one can even potentially figure out how to take a position post-listing based on the pricing and based on what it actually lists at. But overall, this looks like a very, very good issue, very promising. I personally will be applying for this. So it's 800 crore, so it's not going to be that easy to get, but worth trying.
Got it. Very comprehensive. Just one anchor book name which I think you missed was Quant Mutual Fund. Quant Mutual Fund has like 11% in this anchor, which
Yes,
is
Quant. Yeah.
yeah. With that, maybe the right time, Tanmay, Tanmay, do you have anything to add on another mark from your side?
हाँ, मतलब सी ऑनेस्टली ना मुझे ये बिजनेस ना पसंद आया कि क्यों उसमें पहली बात तो फर्स्ट एनबीएफसीज जब आता है ना आई डोंट गेट मच एक्साइटेड बिकॉज जो ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड मैंने पिछले 7-8 एनबीएफसीज का देखा है नॉट अ सिंगल लिस्टेड एज पर जीएमपी इवन एक्चुअली द लिस्ट हाफ द जीएमपी आई थिंक द लास्ट इशू विद डिड वेल वाज एसबीएफसी फाइनेंस वो भी जीएमपी से कम में लिस्ट हुआ था अच्छा था वो भी कंपनी but what I saw in this company was they have left lot on the table. I think 1.7 times book value पे आता है मतलब close to 177 rupees का NAV है वो 274 something का price band है तो 1.7x पे और ये dilute हो गए और आपका नया कैपिटल ऐड होगा और ये साल का नेट प्रॉफिट पकड़ के आई थिंक पोस्ट मनी 1.3x आएगा FY25 पे and I feel the quality of the business, the diversification, the low NPAs. And one thing I would like to highlight in this कि इनका PCR ratio, provision covering ratio बढ़ के आया है मतलब I feel ये IPO आने से पहले बुक्स क्लीन अप कर चुके हैं अच्छे से बिकॉज आई रिमेम्बर कि मैं जनरली न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ता हूँ सारे स्पेशली द इंग्लिश न्यूज़पेपर्स तो 2-3 महीने पहले क्या हुआ करता था एंड यू नो इन द एंड पेजेस वी सी मेनी बैंक्स सेलिंग द मतलब वो जो उनके ऑप्शंस होते हैं बहुत सारे फ्रॉम द हाउसिंग फाइनेंस और कंज्यूमर पोर्टफोलियो उसमें नॉर्दर्न आकर बहुत बार नाम आता था बट सिंस 2-3 months इट रेयरली कम्स वंस इन अ वीक काइंड ऑफ जो पहले हर 2-3 दिन में आया करता तो इससे दिखता है कि दे हैव सोल्ड देयर बैड पोर्टफोलियो और दे हैव क्लीनड अप द बुक्स तो देख के लग रहा है कि आई फील इट्स नाउ एन आईपीओ रेडी फॉर्म एंड वैल्यूएशंस आर एक्सट्रीमली चीप बिकॉज पहले जो था एक्सपेक्टेशन की ये 1200-1300 करोड़ का आईपीओ आएगा एट मोर देन डबल द वैल्यूएशन मतलब $1 billion के वैल्यूएशन पे आईपीओ आने वाला था एंड आई फील एग्जिस्टिंग इन्वेस्टर से 24% नीचे आईपीओ आ रहा है और उसके बाद ऑलमोस्ट बिजनेस से 30% बढ़ा है एंड दिस फंड विल बी मतलब अगले 2 से 2.5 साल के लिए इनफ रहेगा दे विल नॉट नीड टू रेज द कैपिटल मोर एंड दिस इज आई थिंक दिस कंपनी कैनॉट बी कंपेयर्ड विद इन लिस्टेड पेयर मतलब इसका जो ग्रोथ रेट बन रहा है 31% ग्रोथ है आप अगर ग्रोथ पे कंपेयर करोगे तो इससे 2 प्लेयर और अच्छे हैं एचडीएफसी फाइनेंस एंड बजाज को तो कंपेयर करना मतलब कुछ है ही नहीं मतलब पॉइंट ही नहीं है एचडीएफसी भी है बट एचडीएफसी का भी पोर्टफोलियो बहुत अलग है और मैं इसको अगर इसके बिजनेस के हिसाब से या फिर थोड़ा सा डायनेमिक्स के हिसाब से देखूं तो कैप्री ग्लोबल होता है कैप्री ग्लोबल में भी व्हीकल फाइनेंसिंग इज हायर गोल्ड लोन एयूएम पे अच्छा है उनका बट वन थिंग इन बोथ ऑफ देम कॉमन इज दे आल्सो वर्क ऑन फी इनकम तो इनका भी एक अच्छा 50% नेट प्रॉफिट मार्जिन वाला फी इनकम आता है विच मेक्स देयर बिजनेस प्रीटी सॉलिड तो मतलब देख के तो लगता है कि ये मतलब ऐसे ही दुगना तो आराम से हो जाएगा ये बहुत कम समय में
गॉट इट परफेक्ट जिस हिसाब से जीएमपी चल रहा है लग रहा है कि दोगुना दूध नहीं स्पेशली इन द अनलिस्टेड मार्केट एज वेल बट या डेफिनेटली बी केयरफुल कि जो हम रीड करते हैं वो आईपीओ प्राइस पे होती है दैट्स नॉट on the listing day price. So that's a separate story in itself. But yeah, that was with respect to Nadanark, our read of Nadanark. Maybe while you guys are still here, I'll quickly clarify. 3 IPO है इस बार Mainboard, which is a very interesting question and almost everyone has this question. Nadanark, Arcade and Western Carriers. What is your probability? What is your way of application? What are you going to prioritize? For me, I'm assuming it would be the same, but feel free to clarify. I'll be going first priority to Nadanark, second to Arcade, and then if I feel like I'll put a few retail lots in Western Carriers. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Tanmay, Rohit, do you guys have anything on this?
यस मैं तो देखो नॉर्दर्न आर्क का चीज ऐसा है ना कि एनबीएफसी है तो इट्स पॉसिबल कि 70% का प्रीमियम में लिस्टिंग शायद नीचे हो इफ आई होप आई एम रॉन्ग जो ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड देख के मैं आया हूँ उसके हिसाब से बात कर रहा हूँ बट मेरे लिए नॉर्दर्न आर्क विल बी नंबर वन रीजन बिंग ऑलमोस्ट 70 to 80% मोर इश्यू साइज देन आर्केड एंड सेकंड थिंग वुड बी कि आर्केड में अभी 100 रुपए प्रीमियम है तो लोग प्रीमियम देख के अप्लाई करेंगे वहां पे मिलना कुछ नहीं है सिर्फ ब्लॉक अनब्लॉक का गेम है मुझे नॉर्दर्न आर्क में अलॉटमेंट के चांसेस दिखते हैं और वेस्टर्न कैरियर का सीन ऐसा है ना सर कि मतलब होता है ना कि थोड़ा गलत गलत लग रहा है मुझे इशू वो काइंड ऑफ मेरे को कंफर्ट नहीं है आईपीओ में तो मतलब मेरा भी सेम ही होगा कि मुझे कुछ पैसे पैसे तो बच जाएंगे वैसे तो रिटेल मार दूंगा ज्यादा से ज्यादा बड़ी एप्लीकेशन तो मैं नहीं सोच रहा हूँ वेस्टर्न कैरियर्स में
गॉट इट। विद दैट मे बी वील मूव फॉरवर्ड। एक अगली दो एसएमईज है उनकी बात करते हैं। सबसे पहले मे बी विल डू पिलाट्रो। पिलाट्रो करके एक कंपनी आ रही है, सो उसकी बात करता हूँ। मे बी आई टॉक अबाउट दिस कंपनी। सो द कंपनी is coming in. It's a CRM, customer retention and customer engagement प्लेटफॉर्म बनाती है कंपनी। सो उसके बारे में बात करता हूँ। बट कंपनी 56 CR रेस करने की कोशिश करी, ऑल फ्रेश इशू। सितंबर 19 को आईपीओ क्लोज हो रहा है। 208 करोड़ 208 CR वैल्यूएशन पे कंपनी आ रही है। सो जैसा कि मैंने बताया, कंपनी का एक कस्टमर एंगेजमेंट प्लेटफॉर्म है एमवीवा करके। सो कस्टमर एंगेजमेंट प्लेटफॉर्म क्या करता है कि जैसे उसमें जब अपन लेट्स से बाटा से शूज खरीदने जाते हैं, तो हम अपना नंबर देते हैं उनको फोन का, फिर उस नंबर पे मैसेज आते रहते हैं, राइट, कि वी मिस यू, द नेक्स्ट टाइम यू आर इन स्टोर गेट अ 30% डिस्काउंट if you buy more than XYZ amount, or messages like that. So essentially loyalty and customer retention solutions. So these are done by a platform. Mviva is the platform which is managed by Pelatro, and the company has like 296 employees and has been doing so. It's a software play, it's a tech play. So because of which I was very interested in this company, but फिर मैंने कंपनी को काफी डीप में पढ़ा and I was not interested anymore. So I'll kind of talk about that. But yeah, at a very high level company, there's campaign management, loyalty management, कि उसमें points वगैरह बनाने हो किसी कस्टमर को, एफिनिटी टीयर्स बना के देने हो, लाइफस्टाइल बना के कि आप ये करोगे तो आपको ये मिलेगा वगैरह, वो सब करती है कंपनी के। मेजरली ना टेलीकॉम क्लाइंट्स हैं। मोस्ट ऑफ द क्लाइंट्स आर फ्रॉम टेलीकॉम। 38 टेलीकॉम नेटवर्क्स के साथ कंपनी काम करती है, जिसमें से 30 कंट्रीज के अक्रॉस वो स्प्रेड है। 16 एशिया में, 5 मिडिल ईस्ट में, 15 अफ्रीका में, एक कैरेबियन में और एक यूरोप में। सो काफी डाइवर्सिफाइड प्रेजेंस है। और कंपनी की कई सारी सब्सिडरीज भी हैं। लाइक अलग लिस्टेड कंपनी थी एक पहले यूके में, और उसके बाद एक ही कंपनी की सब्सिडरी थी सिंगापुर में, जो अब उनने सब्सिडरी उठा के वहां से इस वाली इंडिया वाली कंपनी को सेल कर दी, और अब वो सब्सिडरी बन गई इंडिया वाली कंपनी की। सो अगर जैसे मैं इसके बारे में पढ़ रहा था, तो कंपनी ने जो है अपनी यूके में भी लिस्टिंग करा रखी है एक सिमिलर कंपनी की, लाइक ग्रुप कंपनी की, और यूके में लिस्ट करा के उसको 2015 टाइप में लिस्टिंग कराई थी कंपनी की। लेकिन उसके बाद वो 2017 में पेलेट्रा पीएलसी करके ब्रिटेन में एस्टेब्लिश की थी, और 2017 से 2022 तक काफी चली कंपनी। उसके बाद 2022 में कंपनी ने बहुत बड़ा लॉस बुक किया इम्पेयरमेंट के नाम पे। सो इम्पेयरमेंट इन गुडविल बेसिकली होता है कि आपका मार्केट में इंटेंजिबल जो एसेट्स हैं उसकी वजह से जो वैल्यू है, सो उनने वो वैल्यू दिखा के उसमें 14 मिलियन का ब्रिटिश पाउंड्स का लॉस दिखाया था, जिसकी वजह से कंपनी का शेयर प्राइस अचानक से 8 पाउंड से लेके 80 सेंट आ गया था। एंड कंपनी ने अपनी डीलिस्टिंग प्रोसेस चालू कर दी है वहां पे। इट विल गेट डीलिस्टेड सून पर से। सो अब मैं वापस से इंडिया वाली एंटिटी पे आता हूँ। सो इंडिया वाली एंटिटी में भी जैसे आप देखोगे तो काफी सिमिलर पैटर्न दिखेंगे आपको। कंपनी की जो बैलेंस शीट है वो अराउंड 57 CR की है, जिसमें से 19 करोड़ का तो उनने गुडविल दिखाया हुआ है। एंड आई एम नॉट सेइंग इट विल रिपीट अगेन, बट वंस बिटन ट्वाइस शाय वाला सीन है कि हो सकता है कि वो गुडविल पे फिर से कभी ना कभी इम्पेयरमेंट लेना पड़े उनको, एंड वो अभी के लिए बस दिखाया हुआ है ताकि टू इन्फ्लेट द बैलेंस शीट। सिमिलरली जो प्रमोटर्स हैं उनपे 2-3 केसेस भी चल रहे हैं। सेबी की तरफ से उनपे केस चल रहा है, जहां पे प्रमोटर जो है वो पहले एक सोबेक्स लिमिटेड करके कंपनी है, उसके सीईओ थे जब, तब उनने गलत होल्डिंग किसी को सेल कर दी थी विदाउट गिविंग इन्फॉर्मेशन। सो उसकी वजह से उनपे सेबी पे पेनल्टी भी लगा हुआ है। उसके अलावा उनका जो यूके वाली सब्सिडरी है जिसको उन्होंने डीलिस्ट कर दिया है, उसमें भी कुछ तो शेयर होल्डर्स ने उनके अगेंस्ट केस किया हुआ है कि उनने फेयर वैल्यू उन शेयर्स को, डीलिस्ट की प्रोसेस चल रही है, करनी दिया। डीलिस्ट वाली कंपनी जो कर रहे हैं उसमें भी शेयर होल्डर्स ने उनपे केस किया हुआ है कि ये कंपनी में उनने फेयर वैल्यू नहीं दी। So seems like a very dangerous play because the company is trying to repeat what it has done earlier in UK, now in India, because boom चल रहा है। Again, my read be can be completely wrong, but again it's better to be safe than to be sorry is what I think. So उस हिसाब से कंपनी ने जो ये सिंगापुर वाली अपनी सब्सिडरी है, वो पहले वो यूके वाली सब्सिडरी थी, पर उसको उनने अब यहाँ कर दिया, $350 में सेल करके उसको इंडिया की सब्सिडरी का पार्ट बना दिया। जैसे मैं बता रहा था, 57 CR की बैलेंस शीट है, जिसमें से 19 करोड़ 19 CR तो गुडविल है। उसके अलावा 21 CR जो है वो ट्रेड रिसीवेबल पड़ा हुआ है कंपनी पे। ट्रेड रिसीवेबल मतलब बेसिकली कंपनी ने काम कर दिया है लेकिन पैसे आना बाकी हैं, जिसमें से इंटरेस्टिंगली 10 CR तो कंपनी का यूके वाली कंपनी से ट्रेड रिसीवेबल पड़ा है। और जैसा कि हमें पता है यूके वाली कंपनी तो डीलिस्ट होने वाली है, So वो 10 CR would probably be a write off. So 10 CR वो हो गया. In fact 21 CR का trade receivable है, 19 CR का goodwill है. So again very dangerous company to apply, especially at this level per se. But अगर मैं कंपनी के फाइनेंशियल्स की बात करूं, मैंने इतना देखा, उसके बाद फाइनेंशियल्स वगैरह पे तो मैंने ज्यादा ध्यान दिया ही नहीं कि इट डजेंट मेक सेंस पर से. बट अगर मैं कंपनी की फाइनेंशियल्स की बात करूं तो स्टैंड अलोन लेवल पे कंपनी प्रॉफिटेबल है. कंपनी ने अराउंड 5 CR का पैट किया था इन FY24 स्टैंड अलोन लेवल पे, अराउंड 60 CR के टॉप लाइन पे. लेकिन कंसोलिडेटेड में क्या है, उनका वो जो सिंगापुर वाला सब्सिडरी है वो भी आ जाती है और उसमें लॉस है. तो कंसोलिडेटेड लेवल पे कंपनी का 2 CR का लॉस ही है. तो वो उसके साथ भी ये कंपनी भी आ रही है. और अगर मैं बात करूं कंपनी करना क्या चाह रही है, तो बेसिकली 55 CR जो रेस कर रही है, 55 to 60 तक कंपनी रेटिंग 56 CR. हाँ, सो जो कंपनी 56 CR रेस कर रही है उसमें से कैपेक्स वगैरह करेगी और अपनी सब्सिडरी को देगी वर्किंग कैपिटल के लिए, खुद के वर्किंग कैपिटल के लिए पैसे चाहिए. सो ऑल ऑफ दोस रीजंस वर रिटन. बट ऑनेस्टली आफ्टर लुकिंग एट द ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड एंड अगेन जो LM है इस कंपनी का, क्यूमुलेटिव कैपिटल, उनका कोई पास्ट ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड नहीं है, एक भी कंपनी इससे पहले नहीं आई है उनकी. सो इट जस्ट फेल्ट कि, again I'm not saying that is true, but it just felt कि someone's trying to take advantage of the SME boom and get listed. There are just so many red flags, apparent red flags, like 18 CR goodwill, 10 CR trade receivables from the UK company, group company, which is getting delisted on a 57 CR timeline, 57 CR balance sheet. Then the promoters having a few cases against them from SEBI, promoter having cases from the London shareholders. So it just felt better safe than sorry, and I would want to avoid. Although the story when I had heard, it's one of those plays where you have a hockey stick curve कि अगर एक बार प्ले आपके कस्टमर्स आ गए आपके पास, तो इट्स अ B2B सेल्स प्ले, आप बेचते रहोगे and you could get very very good valuations. Like अगर if it was a very good company, then you don't mind giving it, let's say, a 6 to 8 market cap to sales. So उस हिसाब से sorry 6 so उस हिसाब से this company should easily be at 400 CR, but only if it was a good company. The kind of red flags and corporate governance issues that it has, I don't think it is investable. But yeah, that is what my view of Pelatro was. Maybe with that we can move forward. Rohit, do you want to go ahead and talk about one last company that we want to cover? So just to set it up, we will kind of talk about Osel Devices. Osel Devices करके company आ रही है जिसका IPO आज खुल चुका है, if I am not wrong. Yeah, it is open today and will close on Thursday. The company is coming up with an IPO of 70 CR, very interesting issue. And this is again a company, again a heads up that this is a company which we covered, and the management interaction for this company would be live on our channel by tomorrow morning. For Osel Devices. So if you haven't followed the YouTube channel, go ahead and do that. It's in the pinned comment ऊपर जो आप देख रहे हैं उसमें है. But yeah, having set it up, maybe Rohit, do you want to go ahead and talk about Osel Devices?
Yes, thanks, Manish. So this is actually a pretty interesting company. I feel that a lot of the companies that have come in the last few days, many of them have not been very good. But this one I quite liked. So I'll quickly tell you what they do and then jump into why I like this company. So they are a manufacturer of electronic devices. So they have two main categories. One is hearing aids. The other is niche LED use cases. So, I mean, the LEDs that we obviously use on a day-to-day basis are on our phones or on our TVs. But these guys do, very niche use case, those, let's say the giant screens you might see in front of a retail shop, or in say on CNBC or on Z Business, those huge, very specific custom LED sort of use cases. That is what they do. The interesting thing is they are an end-to-end manufacturer. So they do everything from R&D to design to the manufacturing to software that sort of ties all of this together to the final selling. So they are not just any importer or assembler. Then they actually have high-end machinery. They actually make the LEDs. If you take the modules, you actually have to put the whole thing together. You have to create the PCBs. So they actually are a genuine manufacturer from everything that I can see. And I would urge people who are interested in this company to go check out their YouTube channel, and you can see there are some videos that shows the quality of their setup. Today, hearing aids is about 2/3 of their business and LEDs is 1/3. And both the segments are growing nicely. And we did ask a question to the promoter as to, why these two segments, they look very different. But his answer was, at the end of the day, both are core electronic businesses. And as such, the processes are all very similar, even though the end markets are different. The manufacturing process is quite similar. They will also, today they're largely domestic, but they do intend to get into export as well. Their financials are very good. They're doing about 130 crore in revenue this year, up from 80 crore, so growing at over 60%. Their PAT margin is healthy. It's about 9.5, 10%. They have also disclosed their June numbers in the RHP. They did around 37 crore top line in June, which just if you multiply it translates to 150 crore, but you know that these are growing businesses. And so with their working capital calculation suggests around 200 crore revenue, and they have about a 120 crore order book, which the promoter clarified will be delivered by December. So it looks very likely that they will cross that 200 crore sort of threshold, which is another 50% growth. Maybe they might even do more than this. Their cash flows are also very good. Although there is one red flag here, there's been a big increase in their trade payables, which is the money that they have not paid to their suppliers, which is one way to show improved cash flow. So that is one thing I would still say needs to be monitored, because last year cash flows were negative, this year they're positive, and that can be attributed to this one thing. So here I'll still put a question mark. Electronics manufacturing is a hot theme in India. It gets incredibly high multiples. This business is coming at 19p. I found the promoter very impressive. He's a very no nonsense, straight talking kind of guy. You guys can again listen to the interview. You'll get a feel of what I mean. And I felt that the anchor book was also pretty decent. There's this new fund that I've been noticing, Invicta fund, Invicta Continuum, I think, which has started appearing in anchors recently. It looks to be a very credible fund, and they're taking positions in these SMEs and very small sort of new IPOs. It's by one of the ex-directors at Citibank. So yeah, overall, I am quite bullish on this business. It looks quite interesting. Certainly to apply decent size issue, so chance of allotment. And because of its size, it might not list at 90%, and there may be an opportunity to enter also if the conditions are right. But again, one major caveat, SMEs are not, they're just not moving after listing. So, do your full due diligence before you take a buying position here. But yeah, I found that this company to be quite exciting and worth researching at your level if you guys want to take positions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rohit, for covering it. And again, I would kind of highlight that make sure you understand this risk, especially on trying to enter on listing day. Because again, it all depends on the screen, and there are a lot of factors which you need to depend on. But this is what our read was, and we'll also post this on the promoter interview of this by tomorrow morning on our YouTube channel. So listen to that as well. Understand from the promoter what his vision was. I really like the promoter quality, as Rohit was saying, it's a no nonsense promoter per se. Just one thing which I should highlight in all fair disclosure, that the LM is Horizon, which had the last issue as Tunwal. So the LM is not of the best quality. Lead manager is slightly average. So keep that in mind as well. But that's something which was our read with respect to and the last company, which is Osel Devices. With that, we have kind of covered the read for all companies. And maybe we can close the space in 5 minutes, but we had a few questions. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the chat box. But I know, Rohit, you had a point to make with respect to some of the companies buying some cars, etc., on their name. So do you want to kind of talk about that point?
I'll mention this. This is a point I've been seeing on Twitter, and I've been seeing this on Chittorgarh as well. This is related to there being vehicles or cars in the asset base, or taken as debt or hypothecated against certain loans in many companies, right? Like even Osel Devices, there are some luxury vehicles which are there in the mentioned in the balance sheet. I remember there was a notification sometime back of the Alpex Solar guys approving this in a board meeting. Same thing happened with, I think, Green Ganesh. And it's actually very common. It's exceedingly common. And I feel many people misunderstand the purpose of this. It is not that the company is just taking a random luxury car. The reason is, see, most of these cases, these promoters are not taking much of a salary, or they are going to be taking a far lower salary than market salary. when they are purchasing the car, rather than purchasing the car in their own name, it is more tax efficient for them to purchase the car in the company's name, and it's completely legal. It is something that many companies provide as an option. If you probably go to the company you work at, there is a chance that they will offer this as a perk to you, where you can save us or you can be more tax efficient essentially, because the same amount will get cut from your salary, and that will go into this sort of car leasing kind of model, and that will show up in the balance sheet of the business. So don't view this as, oh, this company is buying X car, Y car, what is the point of this Wellfire or this Audi for this company? It isn't. This is just money that isn't going as salary to a promoter, being provided as a perk, which, like I said, is more tax efficient, and it's exceedingly common. But I feel that people misunderstand this, and they kind of paint that company in a bad light because they do this. So just try and understand the reason behind why they do this. Just a company like this, say 3 years ago, 4 years ago, would have had no intention of going public, and they would have taken some of these actions because it's the most efficient thing for them to do. Now, 3 years later, 4 years later, they are going public. Maybe now they realize that the market doesn't like such things, but there is no ulterior motive or any negative purpose behind what they're doing. It is simply more tax efficient.
On this, maybe one thing from my end is, again, I understand that promoters try and do it because it is tax efficient. I understand that part, but it's not something which should continue after a company becomes public, because then, like, जो आपका थोड़ा smartness होता है ना prior to listing, that suddenly starts creating corporate governance issues, CG issues. Promoters should be smart enough to understand that their own money and the company's money is different, and those are two different entities. So again, nothing wrong in terms of trying to do it prior to the company getting listed, but if it continues after listing, or if something like that happens, then that's a definite CG issue for me.
Again, I might disagree with that, because I know many companies that do continue to provide it. It just is new, so people don't know how to read it. But like I said, there is zero cost to the company. Think of someone having a 1 crore salary versus a 70 lakh salary and a 30 lakh cost of car. That is exactly what happens in this case. So there is zero cost to company. It is simply more tax efficient, and it is offered as a perk. So in my view, there should be no read whatsoever that this is a corporate governance issue. It is just, it looks odd if somebody doesn't know the reason behind why this is happening.
Got it. Understood. Now that you say it, I kind of understand, because our company also gives that work, which I've never
Exactly.
used. Yeah, I've never used, but yeah, so it's just more tax efficient for me to take it. If I do that, that kind of reduces my intent. So for company, it's the same. The CTC comes across the same. If that's the case, I would love to leave more.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
With that, we have Vineet, who understands the banking space and the housing finance space well. Welcome, Vineet, to the space. Just wanted to get your views as well on how should someone view or read some of the banks. What all are the parameters that we should be looking at? If you have something to share on that, that would be super helpful.
Hi Manish, hi everyone. Sorry, ये थोड़ा space is focused more or less only on subscribing IPOs and whether an IPO is good or the GMP is justified, etc. थोड़ा सा tangential topic है since 2 of the financial IPOs are coming this week. So most of NBFCs, banks, etc. Their raw material is actually cash or equity. And if your ROE is close to around 15-16%, then the company should ideally grow by 15-16% to maintain the capital adequacy ratio. If it is growing far higher than the ROE, then your capital adequacy ratio will continue to dilute in times to come. And once that happens, they will have to raise further equity from the market, which leads to dilution of existing shareholders. So ROE for any of the financial NBFC companies, ROA is business efficiency and ROE is shareholder return efficiency. तो अगर आपकी ROE कम है किसी भी फाइनेंशियल कंपनी में, मान लो 11% है और वो कंपनी लोन बुक इंक्रीज कर रही है 20% से, so there is a differential of 9%. That 9% will hit the capital adequacy ratio every year, every quarter, and eventually the capital adequacy ratio will continue to dilute over a time. and hence based on RBI's regulations and directives, all financial companies, all NBFCs have to maintain a capital adequacy ratio which is specifically tier 1. In order to do that, they either have to raise tier 1 bonds, which is not possible for almost all NBFCs, smaller ones, and or either an equity, which is again a dilution of the shareholders. So given that if the ROE is less, the market will value that company much lower than an efficient company which is trading above 20% ROE, because that company has the potential to grow 20%. If a company has an ROE of 10% or 15%, that company has a potential to grow 10%, 15%, and hence price to book will depend based on the growth potential of the company. So if a company is getting valued at 1.5 or 1.6 or 2 times price to book, it is based on their ROE profile and their book nature also. So ROE profile की हमने बात कर ली. Book nature is all dependent on market conditions. For example, MSMEs, we have seen lot of issues in last quarter for most of the banks and NBFCs. And since NBFCs are more exposed towards MSMEs, so it is very important to track the MSME sector as a whole. तो अगर MSME में पूरे सेक्टर में सब बैंक्स में सब जगह पे इशू आ रहा है, तो ऑब्वियसली smaller NBFCs are more risk prone and risky areas where banks are not lending while smaller NBFCs are lending. तो obvious है वहां पर थोड़ा ज्यादा रिस्क होगा and eventually the valuation will further get downgraded. तो अगर किसी को लॉन्ग टर्म लगाना है पैसा NBFC या बैंकिंग सेक्टर में, तो these are the key things to look at, though I can go much more in detail, but अभी के लिए इतना काफी है क्योंकि IPO के लिए ही कर रहे हैं डिस्कशन. तो ये की फिगर्स होती हैं ROE वगैरह और वो सब. अगर लॉन्ग टर्म देखना शुरू करना है, तो अगर IPO में निकल के GMP के बेस पे निकलना है, तो आई डोंट थिंक यू नीड टू इवन लुक एट द रेशियोज, जस्ट GMP देखो और निकल जाओ, और क्या करना है.
Understood. No, yeah, Vineet, the idea is to be able to understand companies from fundamentals perspective, and it's always good to know your views as well and try and incorporate them. Just to highlight, अभी check किया, so I'm not saying I knew this, but ROE for Northern Arc is 9.7%, and ROE for SBFC Finance is 8.5%. Bajaj Finance is somewhere around 18.8%. So big difference. Cholamandalam is around 17.5%. So ROE iska kam hai. Maybe that's also one of the reasons why, as Vineet was explaining, the company is coming at a lower PB ratio. Just one more thing, Vineet, how much point do you give to the NPA ratios, etc.? How much percentage is NPA? Because I was seeing iska NPA ratio काफी अच्छा है. So how much weightage should one give to that, or is it a pure play ROE and a PB ratio that someone should look at?
So Manish, NPA ना बहुत cyclical होता है. For example, right now NPA cycle is at the lowest. It is just bottoming out. तो अगर मैं पिछले क्वार्टर की बात करूं, तो धीरे धीरे NPA बढ़ना शुरू हो गया है MSME में. बट उसके पिछले 6 क्वार्टर आप देखोगे NPA कॉन्टिन्यूसली डिक्लाइन हो रहा है, और उसके भी पीछे जाओगे ना तो NPA इंक्रीज हो रहे थे. तो NPA इज ए साइक्लिकल थिंग. आप कैसी अच्छी अंडर राइटिंग करते हो, अच्छी अंडर राइटिंग लीड्स टू बेटर NPAs, लोअर NPAs लीड्स टू लोअर क्लास ऑफ अंडर राइटिंग विच लीड्स टू लोअर हायर NPAs. तो वही है ना, बुल मार्केट क्रिएट्स गुड lot of investors, and eventually when bear market comes, lot of bad investors goes out, and then eventually more good investors come in during the bear market, and then eventually bull market creates. So same है, NPA जैसे जैसे बढ़ते हैं तो बैंक जो होते हैं वो बहुत ज्यादा वो हो जाते हैं, अपने आप को कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कर लेते हैं, एंड दे स्टार्ट डूइंग वेरी गुड अंडर राइटिंग. और जैसे जैसे NPAs कम होते चले जाते हैं, उनके पास लीवे आ जाता है, बहुत ज्यादा अच्छी ROE बनने लग जाती है, दे हैव लॉट ऑफ मनी टू गिव आउट फॉर द लोन्स, तो उनकी अंडर राइटिंग खराब होने शुरू हो जाती है. इट्स ए साइकिल. तो अभी हम बॉटम आउट साइकिल में चल रहे हैं, धीरे धीरे बॉटम हो रहा है NPA, एंड इवेंचुअली यू विल सी के थोड़े टाइम बाद जब MSME या किसी जैसे मुद्रा लोन्स हैं, मुद्रा लोन्स बहुत तरीके से बांटे गए हैं पिछले 2-3 साल में. Similarly, ECLGS स्कीम्स हैं जो गवर्नमेंट ने गारंटी कर रखी है, उसमें भी बहुत सारे लोगों को कोरोना के बाद 50-50, 60-60 हजार रुपए या 1-1 करोड़ के लोन बटे हैं, जिसमें अभी तक कुछ रिपेमेंट नहीं आई है. So eventually when they will come for maturity, you will see lot of pain in NPAs. And when that pain will come, eventually it will derate the whole sector. But हमको सिर्फ साइकिल को भी जज करना है और साथ में लॉन्ग टर्म कंपाउंडिंग कितनी होनी है, बिकॉज इंडिया इज ए ग्रोथ मार्केट. इंडिया के अंदर हर वो शेयर चलता है जहां पर ग्रोथ नजर आती है. बजाज फाइनेंस क्यों चला? उसमें हर साल 40%, 50% की ग्रोथ आ रही थी. सेम विद एशियन पेंट, सेम विद ऑलमोस्ट ऑल मल्टीवैगर्स, वीआईपी इंडस्ट्रीज देख लो, सब जगह पे ग्रोथ की कहानी है. इवेंचुअली अगर आप ग्रो कर पा रहे हो तभी आप मल्टीफोल्ड रिटर्न बनाओगे इन द लॉन्गर रन. लेकिन अगर आप ग्रो ही नहीं कर पा रहे हो, आपकी आरओ ही अगर 8%, 9% है, तो आप 8-9% से ज्यादा ग्रो ही नहीं कर सकते. और अगर आपकी आरओई 20%, 25% है, दैट मीन्स यू कैन ग्रो बाय 20%, 25% एवरी ईयर. सो इट्स ऑल ए स्टोरी ऑफ ग्रोथ. अगर एनपीए लोएस्ट है तो आपका आरओई भी हाईएस्ट आएगा. अगर एनपीए हाईएस्ट है, आपका आरओई लोएस्ट आएगा. सो योर एम इज टू लुक एट द लोएस्ट आरओई इन द साइकिल, whether that is a good ROE or not. That is your sustainable growth projection. For example, Bajaj Finance at the peak of NPA cycle had an ROE of close to around 22-23%. That's why Bajaj Finance used to trade at 8 times price to book. बट आज के टाइम पे बजाज फाइनेंस की ग्रोथ 35% से कम होके 25% पर आ गई है. तो दैट्स वाई इट्स प्राइस टू मल्टीपल बुक हैज ऑल्सो डिक्रीज टू 5x. तो सारी कहानी ग्रोथ और पीक मल्टीपल और पीक लोएस्ट मल्टीपल ऑफ ग्रोथ पे डिपेंडेंट है. होप आई एम एबल टू सिंप्लीफाई.
Got it. No, yeah, that's very, very helpful. So maybe what I can understand from it is a growing book value plus a stable ROE is what someone should essentially be looking at in order to decide if that's the, like, if how to value NBFCs. But yeah, thank you so much, Vineet, for stepping in and letting us know how to value some of these companies as well. It's always tricky and it's always important to know some of the perspectives of some other people as well. So thank you so much for joining in. But with that, we'll kind of cover the space and close the space now. Thank you so much, Vineet, for coming in. And thank you, Rohit and Yash and all of you guys as well for joining. Have a good day ahead.
Thanks, everyone.